knows. And Donovan, he's still a family that's still around out of the Solon area, And when you speak of it, there's quite a few people in the Iowa City area that participated in being a Hawkeye and that are still here. But, those were great wins, just to come back from not winning a game and having to get up and go out there. And I'll tell you one thing about Aaron Leonard, who I always call Big Monk. So if you ever hear me rephrase to Big Monk, I'm talking about Aaron Leonard here, okay? Because in 1973 was the first year that freshmen were allowed to play varsity football. And it's got to be an achievement for a freshman to come in and to be able to play. And even today, if you think about it, some of the guys that are playing have been great achievers along the way. Such as Jim Caldwell. Yeah. He was a freshman in this class that had opportunity to start in the
Coaching for the Colts.
Yeah. And a few of the other guys around, like Shandy Burks. I saw Shandy Burks stop Archie Griffin, 3 times in a row, just boom, boom, boom. And that was a Heisman Trophy winner in multiple years. And it's really exciting to see some of these guys that came to Iowa and participated. Well, those games were really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing I want to interject into this, too, is your schedule was crazy hard. We play USC, UCLA, Michigan,
Penn
State,
Syracuse,
and your
Arizona.
And your
that was a non-conference schedule.
schedule was
Penn
brutal.
State was in the Big Ten.
Yeah, before Penn. Yeah.
That was like about 4 years of that, too.
Yeah.
But this is when USC, had the Pat Hayden, the Ricky Bells, Anthony Davis.
Yeah. Definitely.
JK.
So what was that like going out to LA and all that? And
kind of like a deer in the headlight. You get out to Southern California and it's like, oh wow, it's a lot of pretty girls, it's big cars, it's Hollywood. It really is. But at the same time, you're there to play a football game, and sometimes it was kind of difficult to concentrate. But the non-conference schedule at that time, when you think about it, back in the 70s, when the Big Ten truly was different, it was still the Big Two and the Little Eight. Those games were so that fans could come to Kinnick Stadium and see great teams come to Kinnick Stadium and play the Hawkeyes. That's what it was really about, Call it what you want to, but we had a difficult non-conference schedule because the best talent in America came to Kinnick Stadium to play against the Hawkeyes.
So do you think they booked them to just so you think they booked them so that people could see that?
My personal opinion, yes. It's
bring in the crowd.
Yeah, you want to fill seats.
See, and then when Hayden came in, he wanted the wins, so he got the schedule down a little bit so we could beat some of these teams, get a little confidence. Because by the time the Big Ten season up, we could probably line up our starting 22 against pretty much anybody.
And I'd agree with that.
But then you get in your second and third teams when guys get Monk goes out, Bruce maybe, Bourne Pfeiffer, then that's where we just didn't have that depth back then. So we finished 74, 3-8. 75, seems like we started out about 0-5 or something like that. We had a couple tough games. Tony Dungy was playing for Minnesota. They beat us 31-0. Yeah. And then I can't remember, we went to Indiana. Jim Jensen goes for 202 yards, scores 2 big runs, beat them like 20-10. Do you remember playing in that game over there?
I remember that. Jim Jensen was quite a runner, too. He's another guy that went on to the pros and went off to Denver to do his thing. Exactly. But he was quite a runner. And like Monk was saying again, as I refer to Big Monk, it was nice to have that caliber of competition come, okay? And I'll tell you what, back then they were probably squeezing 59, 60,000 people in the Kinnick Stadium. Yep. And Kinnick Stadium was full. When we was on 11, the fans came out and they supported the team. They did. That's one thing that you'll find today, they still support the team. And that's something that is really exciting about playing here. You know
another thing about Jim Jensen, 6'4", 225. That was a huge back then, and he ran fast.
It was
I got some numbers here. We'll go over here a little bit later about some of the comparisons. But another big game we had, big. We were at Northwestern. We're trailing most of the game. I'm in the stands. I was a manager, but I sat in the stands this time. Butch Caldwell hit Billy Schultz with 40 seconds left. We beat him 24-21. Butch threw like 5 passes that day. He was the starting quarterback and completed 2. You know, we'd have games where there'd be 2 weeks in a row. We wouldn't complete a pass in 75, I remember.
Well, yeah, let me interject this. When you're talking about passing, at the end of that year, our passing completion percentage was 29%.
It was low.
Wow.
Well, I got
That's
some stats here
relatively low.
about 74 with Rob Fick. He played 11 games, completed 48% of his passes for 1,059 yards, 6 TD passes, 12 interceptions. If he would do that today, he'd get destroyed. I don't know. You know, Stanzi, 65% completion, 2,800 yards, 25 TDs. This is during the season, and 4 picks. He had 2 more in the bowl game, but still, I mean, it was just a whole different world.
But like you guys, I mean, did they obviously focused more on the running game because that just seemed to go a lot better than the passing game.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, that 75 season, that was the first time ever that we beat both Northwestern and Wisconsin.
That's right.
And so, you know, to finish the year, we actually had 3 Big Ten wins that year.
Yeah.
Well,
We had some successes.
that Wisconsin game, 45-28, was that the one where they had the fumble Ruski and then Eddie Donovan went around in? We beat them 45-28. We had 439 rushing yards. That's the most against any Big Ten team. But, you know, that was the era. You know, Cummings kind of went back to the 50s, the wing tee, and, you know, Woody and Bo, they never passed much. You know, you pound it out, get your yards, and then play defense and, you know, have a good kicking game. So it was just a whole different setup back then.
Yeah, the Big Ten was different. And you know, so was the college landscape of football and basketball. You think about basketball, for example. The NCAA tournament wasn't anything like it is today, you know, and there was the Big 8, the Pac-8, the Big 10. I'm not even sure if there was a Southeastern Conference. I remember a Southwestern Conference that used to have Texas and Arkansas.
SMU and Baylor.
You know, some of those schools.
Right.
I mean, and then Penn State,
They were
Notre Dame, who still is, but Cincinnati. You know, there were so many other schools. University of Florida, they were independent. You know,
Right.
Yeah, that made a difference. It was a whole, well, the Big Ten had a no repeat rule until about 76 or 77, where if you won it one year, you couldn't win it the second year. And also,
For the Big Ten?
yeah. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Because they would actually
I
vote.
remember that.
They would vote when Michigan would play Ohio State, and you know, if Michigan would win and they'd have the same record, they'd vote to see who would go into the bowl game.
I remember that now that you say that because they didn't want the same school going out to the West Coast again for the glamour game, the granddaddy of all games, and just playing 2 years in a row. They wanted to mix it up.
Plus, this is unbelievable. The Big Ten only sent one team to a bowl game every year until 1977-78, right in there. And so all these other schools are getting all this exposure, and they finally, you know, opened that up.
So back in the bowl, I mean, you had like 5, 6 bowls. That's it.
Yeah,
If
you didn't
won
have
your
that many.
conference, you went to a bowl.
You might have had 8 or 9, but it wasn't 30 like it is
No.
now.
Well, now there's, I don't know, how many?
It's probably 40.
There's like,
Well, there's 32, I think. There's 64 teams that went. Because you had the sugar, the orange, the cotton, and the rose. And there might have been 1 or 2 others, but it was a small pickings back then.
I mean, it was a big deal if you went to a bowl game.
It
back
really
then,
was.
You know.
It really
Yeah.
was.
You know, we jumped to 76 now, and we actually finished 4-7 that year. But UCLA had to forfeit a game against Iowa because they did something illegal. So we ended up going 5-6. I looked that up in the book here. Obviously, the big win was going out to Penn State. We beat them 7-6. I think Tommy Wren scored the touchdown. Nick Quintero kicked the extra point, and Matt Suey scored for Penn State. And supposedly Dean Moore might have got a little piece of the ball when they kicked the extra point. I mean, that was just huge. Did you go out? Did you go on that road trip?
Yep, and nothing more exciting than going up in the College Park and leaving with a win. I'll tell you that. And it was just by 1 point, it was a win.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Cummings said that was the biggest win in 20 years.
Yeah, it probably was.
It was.
You know, and
Joe Paul.
Joe Pa beat Joe Pa. Yeah, exactly.
At home.
7-6.
Oh, yeah. He was a young dude back then, I think. But we jump up to 77. Now, that was the revival of the Iowa State series. We hadn't played them for 43 years. And the reason that is when they played them last back in the 30s or something, there were so many fights and there was so much dissension between the schools that they decided, no, we're not going to do this for a while. So we knocked them off 12-10. Mosley runs for about a 77-yard score. Did you play in that game? Do you remember much about it?
I didn't play in that game, but I suited up for that game. I do remember all the hype about the rivalry being renewed.
Yeah.
And it was just an exciting, it was an electric time for the Iowa State series to be renewed again. And Dennis had a great game.
Oh yeah, wasn't Bobby Cummings Jr. the quarterback in that game in there? And I don't have the record in front of me right then, but I think it was another one of those years we won 3 or 4 games and played them tough all year.
But we beat the Clones.
That's right. That's right. I wrote down some of the coaches that were coached for Iowa. Larry Coyer is coaching for the Colts. Now, didn't you guys go out and be a guest of Jimmy at one of the games here?
Yeah, I went down to visit with Jimmy after he first got his job. Spent a few days down there and saw Coach Coyer as well.
Oh yeah,
and Jim was doing well, and that was pretty exciting right there as well to get a chance to do that. And speaking on that, Kent Stevenson, who was my line coach at the time, he went on and coached Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, did he really?
He was line coach in the pros for about 15 years and spending time in there and keeping up with those guys, you know. And Joe Dahlen spent a little time as well.
Okay.
You keep contact with Devlin?
A lot of those guys are out there that, I tell you, and all of that changed with getting involved with Hayden Fry.
Oh, he wanted to get the old boys back in.
A lot of his assistants all have head jobs nowadays. You know, it's almost just like the great breeding ground of being a Hawkeye. You know, it's great to be a Hawkeye. You see them come and develop and just be continuous and being leaders and winning. So I think even though we didn't have the games to show for, we're still a winner by coming through the program here.
How about high points of you guys' career at Iowa, individually?
For that Penn State game we won?
I know your first start was against Syracuse, right?
Oh, that's right.
That had to have been a real high point for you in 76.
Had a win against, I would say those are probably the things that I'll always remember. You know, it's beating teams like that as well as Penn State and UCLA. I mean, those are the high points, but just the high point is the type of schedule you play. You know, you're opening with Michigan, closing with Michigan. The only time we ever left the Big Ten was to play Penn State or to play Arizona, or USC, and that was it. Everything else was a Big Ten ball game at that time.
That's right.
Yeah. Like you, Monk, what was your high point?
I think my last year, because I had 3 knee injuries while playing, and I got injured my last year too. That sophomore year we spoke about earlier when I got hurt in the first game, I got a redshirt year for that, which I'm very grateful to because it helped me obtain a degree from the University of Iowa. You know, that extra year of being able to hit the books and being a student athlete. My last year, though, before I got hurt in the Ohio State homecoming game, I think I had some pretty good games. I was really fired up about, this is my last go-around. Let's do the best I can. And I felt like I did until I got injured that last time. But I played some really good games against Minnesota, against Ohio State that year. And we beat Minnesota. We lost to Ohio State, but just trying to finish out my career,
Sure.
Because I kind of figured at that point in time in my life I wasn't going to play in the NFL, but I was playing for Iowa, so I wanted to leave on a good.
Well,
good
major
foot.
accomplishment, overcoming 3 knee injuries and getting back on the field.
Yeah.
Major.
Yeah. You talked about some of the players that you guys played with. Dan McCarney, obviously, he's the head coach now at North Texas, I think.
North Texas, yeah.
Joe Devlin played 10 or 12 years at Buffalo.
Blocked for OJ.
That's right. Now, Rod Walters, he was one of those guys that everybody thought that he was going to be the man. I think he got drafted